How y'all doing, everybody? It's me, Crazyfrankie, and I'd like to welcome you to my Week 16 4 key game picks. Before we talk about week number 16, thoughts from week 15, and boy, it was brutal. And what I mean by brutal, if you're a fan of the Kansas City Chiefs or the Green Bay Packers, you lost one of your most critical, important players on that team. Starting with the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes tore his ACL. He's done for the remainder of the season and possibly into next season. And to make matters worse, the Chargers eliminated them. The Chiefs' season was hanging by a thread, and somehow the Chargers beat them. I think it was more the Chiefs actually beat themselves because the Chargers offensively only scoring 16 points wasn't impressive at all. But the Chiefs didn't even do themselves any favor too, only scoring 13 points. It was really a bad year for the Chiefs. Determining if their dynasty is officially over, I would say maybe it's on pause, maybe. Because somewhere down the line, they might be better again. I don't know if it will be next season or in 2027, but they do have a lot of question marks going into the end of the regular season, which we won't know until the regular season is over. Now, going to the Packers side, this is brutal losing Michael Parsons to a torn ACL. Basically, he's the heart and soul of that defense. With him going down, it puts a lot of pressure now on everybody in that defense to step up without your leader now in the defense. And really, especially losing Parsons in a critical matchup with the second meeting with the Bears coming up Saturday night. And that is going to be one of the key games I will get into later in the video. Especially the fact with the injuries piling up for the Packers, you got to wonder if their Super Bowl hopes now are hanging by a thread, let alone if they actually will survive just to get into the playoffs. So it's really hard to say what will happen with the Packers down the stretch. But the second meeting with the Bears is very critical to basically control that division. When I look at other teams, the Buccaneers have fallen apart. Last Thursday, they had a 14-point lead, and they lost in the end to a very sorry Falcons team. But what makes this matter even more head-scratching is the Panthers had a golden opportunity to take over that division, and they get swept. And they get swept by the Saints. They lose in New Orleans on a last-second field goal, and the Panthers blew that opportunity to take over that division. Does anybody not want to win that very sorry division? But it really now sets up a key matchup now because finally these two teams will meet in Week 16, and it is also another game I will get into later on in this video. And look at other things that happened in Week 16. Bills live to fight another day. They beat the Pats, holding their NFC East championship celebration. The Bills right now, currently in the 6th seed position right now, basically now with the Chiefs out of the way, and you got to wonder if the Ravens will not get in the playoffs because the Steelers currently hold the division lead in that division. You got to wonder now if this might be even a bigger golden opportunity for Josh Allen in the postseason now that there's no Patrick Mahomes. I can't really say right now because really their defense is still an issue, but it does open the door now for the Bills. It's starting, in all honesty, this has become wide open now for a lot of teams in the NFL to win the Super Bowl. I don't know. Look, the Chiefs are not going to be back. They're out of the postseason. They've been eliminated. The Eagles are struggling, even though they did mop the floor with the Raiders, shutting them out 31-0. But there's still question marks with their team going forward. You gotta wonder now what will go down the stretch for everybody else in the NFL because it's now becoming wide open now. Practically anybody now can win, the way I'm looking at it right now. But when I look at that, the Rams beating up the Lions, did the Rams put themselves back in position to be more likely the best team in the league? Tough to say because they got an important matchup with the Seahawks because that NFC West is loaded, and that is another game I'll get into. Anyways, speaking of that, let's talk about week number 16. All right, beginning with key game number 1. It's a game that I just talked. It's a game that revolving two teams that I just talked about. The Rams versus the Seahawks. The second meeting between these two teams, and obviously this is for the division lead. Matthew Stafford was 24 of 38, 368 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a big victory last week against the Lions. Sam Darnold went 22 of 36, 271 yards, no touchdowns, and no interceptions. In a game that they barely beat the Colts. with Phillip Rivers having to come back for a Colts team that was desperate. What do I look for between these two teams? Obviously on a short week, and they just played each other a while back with the Rams winning the first time. Now the Seahawks get their chance to try to tie the division, to try to take over first place in the NFC West. Both teams are tied at the moment right now. This definitely is basically the driver's seat. Whoever wins this game Thursday night to who wins the division. The Rams are a 1.5 point favorite, and I think that number will go down to 1 for sure. But the question remains now for the Rams, would possibly Davante Adams not playing Thursday night because of a hamstring injury that he aggravated again. You got to wonder now, will Kyren Williams, Nakua, Parkins will have to be big in this game to help out Matthew Stafford in the offense. But I think the more bigger question is for the defense, and can they really hold Kenneth Walker, JSN, and Cooper Kupp? And that's the key for the Seahawks here. Can Walker, JSN, Cooper Kupp, can they break through that Rams defense? Because Rams defense is pretty good. But when that first meeting between these two teams, the Seahawks played them very well. It was basically a fight for survival for both these two teams who was going to win. Seattle missed the field goal. The Rams ended up winning. With the game in Seattle Thursday night, it's tough to say who comes out the victor in this one here. This is a 50-50 toss-up, so I don't know who wins this game here. But it should be a good one on Thursday night, but I'm going to go with the Rams. The Seahawks really struggle with the Colts, and if the Rams offense gets very aggressive, I think the Rams will sweep the Seahawks here to take the division lead. And that's where I'm going to go with. I think the Rams will sweep the Seahawks here. It's definitely going to be a very tight football game. Probably another just like the first time around. Possibly will come down to maybe a field goal again. I'm going to pick the Rams at -1.5 to beat the Seahawks. Key game number 2. It is the second meeting between the Packers and the Bears. The Packers are 1.5 point favorite in this one here, and it will probably go to 1. Jordan Love was 24, 40, 276 yards, 1 touchdown, but he was intercepted twice in a big loss last week to the Broncos, especially losing Michael Parsons, and possibly who knows if Watson is going to play in this game as well. He also got hurt. For Caleb Williams, beating up a terrible Browns team, was 17 of 28, 242 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. That was a big one right there. So now the question is, can the Packers defense still play at a high level without Michael Parsons now? And also at the fact that Jacob was also kind of beat up too in that game against the Broncos. Is he still going to play this Saturday night? But really now, if you look at it, it's up to Matt Golden, Romeo Doubs, and Musgrave to win this game for the Packers against that Bears secondary, which really isn't all that great. For the Bears, knowing if you go back to that game against the Packers, to me, it boils down to Caleb Williams. He has got to be mistake-free. He cannot afford to lose his head. He's got to make smart plays. This is how they're going to beat the Packers. He's got to play it smart, and he's got to be a bit more mature now. Hopefully he learned his mistake from the first meeting when really he could have ran it in for the touchdown or at least get the first down, and they had all 3 timeouts, but yet they gambled on a pass and they intercepted and they lost. Caleb Williams got to be smart with the football. That's key. DeAndre Swift, DJ Moore, and Colston Loveland have got to help out Williams in the passing game here. But more importantly, can their defense make the big stops? All logic says the Packers still, even without Parsons, are still a bit of a better team than the Bears, but I think it could come back to bite them. Not having Parsons could really be a factor in this game. I'm actually going to go with the Bears this time. This is really the Bears' chance to separate themselves from the Packers, and they know it, if they really want to push the Packers further away. Because the Packers right now are currently holding that last playoff spot, and they could be in serious danger if they lose to the Bears of not making the postseason. This is huge. This is kind of more like, if you lose this game, your playoff hopes now are down to like maybe 10% or something like that. And this is the Bears' chance. This is the Bears' chance to beat them. And I'm going to go with the Bears in this one here. I think they will barely beat the Packers here. It's going to come down to the fourth quarter for sure. I'm going to pick the Bears at +1.5. I think they'll beat the Packers this time. Tough to say. Tough pick. It's 50-50. I don't know who wins this game. But I'm gonna lean towards the Bears this time. I think they'll beat the Packers. It's going to be a tight football game. Bears over the Packers. Key game number 3. The Buccaneers versus the Panthers. Finally, the meeting between these two teams, pretty much to decide the division. Baker Mayfield, the Buccaneers are a 3-point favorite. Baker Mayfield was 19 of 34, 277 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and a terrible loss to the Falcons last week. Bryce Young, 15 of 24, 163 yards, 1 touchdown, no interceptions, and the Panthers in a terrible loss against the Saints. The Buccaneers have finally got back to a little bit more, almost to full strength here, and yet they still lose to the Falcons last week. You got to wonder now, is Baker Mayfield starting to lose his confidence here? Because their offense have really struggled, and obviously Todd Bowles kind of threw a lot of people under the bus. But I don't know if it's motivation or it's just plain stupidity. I mean, for the Bucs to win, Baker Mayfield's got to limit the mistakes in this game. And can Evans be a difference maker here? Obviously, because he's really been hurt. He's nearing the end of his career. And obviously, you got to wonder how healthy he is still. But can he be a difference maker? Bucky Irving and Ibuka have got to dominate that Panthers secondary in order to get the passing game going and the run going as well. For the Panthers, this has got to be Young's time to shine in a big game, because he's never had a big game like this in his young career, especially since the Panthers have been terrible. Can Rico Doolittle get the running game going for the Panthers? Because they really had a hard time running the ball last week, and which was really surprising against the Saints secondary that it isn't all that good. And can McMullen and Tremble have a big game to help out Bryce Young in the passing game? Both these teams are evenly matched, and it's very hard to say who wins this football game here, who's going to be out in front in this division. But I'm leaning towards the Bucs, I think, because they're more healthy, and I think, Baker Mayfield, especially now that, because it's not a primetime game, it's one of the early games, and it's going to be really interesting to see how Baker Mayfield does in this stretch here. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers because the experience that they have, and Carolina hasn't been in this position in years. I see the Bucs winning in a very close game here. I'm going to pick the Buccaneers at -3 to beat the Panthers here. I think the Bucs will barely be out in front with a 1-game lead in that NFC South, because they do play again in Week 18. I'm going to pick the Bucs to beat the Panthers in this one. And finally, key game number 4, it is the Patriots versus the Ravens. The Ravens are a 3-point favorite by some reason. Drake May, 14 of 23, 155 yards, no touchdowns, but he was intercepted. Lamar Jackson went 8 of 12, 150 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in a total beatdown of the Bengals, pretty much eliminating them from any sort of contention. This is really put up or shut up time now for the Ravens here, because if they lose this football game, pretty much the Steelers have won the division. That meeting in Week 18 may not mean anything if the Ravens lose this game. For New England, plain and simple, they got to go back to how they were winning their football games here. Trevian Henderson, it's now his time to shine, since he's now been moved up as Stevenson now has moved into the second on the chart. And can Stephon Diggs have a big game in this one here? You got to wonder. But for Baltimore here, you got to get Derrick Henry the ball and let him run it to break through that Patriot defense here. That run has got to get it going here for the Ravens in order to win this game. Zay Flowers also has to dominate that secondary. Mark Andrews, hopefully he can help out Lamar in the passing game, but you also got to look out for Lamar Jackson to be mobile. I know he's been dealing with injuries this season, but if he gets out of the pocket and starts being mobile here, remember, the Patriots had a hard time with Josh Allen in the second half when they dominated in the first half, but yet they somehow let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. Now you got to wonder if Lamar Jackson can be Lamar Jackson against that Patriots secondary. Tough to say who wins this football game here. Obviously, New England is still trying to catch the Broncos for the number 1 seed, but I'm going with the Ravens. The Ravens are going to be playing like a desperate football team here, knowing the fact that they want another crack at the Steelers for the division lead, I should say. And they're fighting for their playoff lives, too, as well. I think the Ravens somehow will find a way to get it done. I know they're not playing at their best right now, and I know the Patriots are considered to be one of the top elites this season, but some reason I see the Ravens pulling out a victory here, because given the fact, if they were to look at the tape with the Bills beating them, that could be maybe did the Patriots get exposed? Tough to say, but I'm going to pick the Ravens at -3. I think they're going to be playing like a desperate football team here, and I think somehow they'll find a way to get the victory here. It's going to be a tight ball game. I'm picking the Ravens at -3 over the Patriots. All right, everybody, that wraps up my picks for Week 16. Please check the description below for all of my NFL Week 16 picks, and I will talk to you guys next week for my Christmas edition of my 4 key game picks going into week number 17. All right, everybody, take care and enjoy your football weekend.